Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Universal Journeys Radio with your hosts, Dr. Brenda L. and Donny Winter. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Universal Journeys is about how spirituality intersects with nearly every other aspect of our lives, even when we do not see it or realize it. Creativity and expression are our connections to the spiritual energy many seek to understand, and our identity is forged through this process. Universal Journey seeks to help illuminate the different intersections between creativity, spirituality, and identity in order to empower and enlighten. And tonight our topic is Donny Speaks, and we're going to be talking about creating your own space. Whether it be spiritual space or creative space, it's all about creating a space for yourself. If you would like to call in and participate in our conversation, you're more than welcome to. Our number is 347-850-8292. Good evening, Brenda dear.
Good evening, and how are you today?
I am peachy with a side of keen. How about you?
Excellent, excellent. I'm feeling creative today. How's that?
Oh my gosh, I'm feeling creative myself. And I think we were feeling pretty creative yesterday, too.
Oh, it was awesome yesterday. If anybody didn't realize or doesn't know it, we went out to the, what was it called? The Spirit, Mind and Body Festival. Yeah, so it was kind of neat. It was here in Prudenville, and we were out there from 8 to 12. I'm sorry, from 12 to 8. See, there's my dyslexic coming out. And we had a ball.
I don't know if I'd be able to be
people.
up at 8 in the morning.
I do every day except for Saturday and Sunday if I can help it. That's funny. So,
but yeah, we had a really great time up there.
We did. You know, and when we were up there, before we got there, we were trying to create our space so that we could have, you know, a nice little energy flow, interaction, and we really did that. I mean, I didn't feel like we repelled anybody. However, I did feel that we were in our own little sanctuary, and you can do that anywhere you go. So.
Exactly. Most people, from people that I've spoken to, most people have a difficult time being creative or being spiritual because they're too busy to do so, or they don't know how to create a space for themselves. Like, I know I have so many friends who want to create, like, a specific part of their house, like, and call it their own, like, make it, you know, their little nook or their little creative area. And the most common excuse that I hear for people who don't do that is, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources. And I'm just going to flat out say this right now. It doesn't matter. If the time doesn't matter, the money doesn't matter, none of that matters. Doing it is what matters. You don't have to have a lot of money or a lot of time to create a space. And
yeah.
No, go ahead, Brenda, dear.
No, finish what you're saying.
Well, I was just saying I've gone through this experience many times where I've always consistently told myself, oh, I can't do anything creative because I can't do it in any specific area. Oh, and most of the time I said that because, I'm too busy, I just can't do it. And when I finally did do it, I was like, oh, I need to start re-examining the excuses that I make for everything, because it definitely affects my creativity and my spirituality. Have you experienced that too?
I've experienced something similar to that. I mean, I remember when I first moved in with a gentleman as a roommate, and his energy wasn't quite where mine was at, and I was really having a hard time because it was his house. So his energy was in the total house, and for me, it wasn't as the higher energy like I'm used to or that I had built around me when I was living with someone else. And I found it very, very difficult, very, very stifling. And it was like I was stuck, and I couldn't get out. And I remember, late at night going down to a grotto down here, which I have real close to me, luckily, and I sit out there and I talk to Jesus for a while, and and it's like, okay, that's a creative space down there already. So I went down there and I talked to him a little bit, and I got the answer that I needed, and then I was able to come back, and from that moment on, I started to put my energy into things, and it didn't cost anything to do this. It was just gradually putting your energy into the spaces that you live in, you work in, and making little changes for you. It took me for the whole house, it took me about a year, and then I finally realized, it kind of dawned on me, like, oh, you now you can function, and that really is one of the things that we try to do, is to function. And if you're not in a creative space, or I should say a space that you feel comfortable in, it's kind of hard and it's a little difficult to be able to function. So you have to do it on your own. I mean, it didn't cost me anything. It just cost me time to rethink or to think of how I would like to have the energy feel. And I just began by raising the energy. So what about you?
Exactly. Well, there are different types of spaces and different ways to utilize the spaces. Now, for me, spirituality and creativity kind of cross paths, okay? And what's spiritual for me is in the living setting that I'm in, because I love plants. I love watching them grow. Gardening is a creative outlet for me. And in turn, the ants, the plants, I would hope there aren't ants, the plants then release energy that makes it feel more homey and more comfortable, which in turn encourages creativity. And I first discovered this when I was doing my undergraduate degree, and when I was living in a dorm room. And you can only imagine how, stuffy and, generic a dorm room looks, right? You have a room with desks, you have a room with beds, and you have a bathroom. It doesn't look that exciting. Well, there was a year where I ended up living with one other person, and I basically, on my side of the room, I took and I turned it into like my little creative Zen area. I brought in a couple of plants. One of the plants was a large tree, so all the time, there was just this large tree filtering the light coming in, and it was very beautiful and comfortable. And my desk, I was like, I'm going to move my desk right in front of my window. So whenever I was at my desk, which is where I'm usually creative, I could look out over campus, because I was on the 8th floor. I could look out over campus. I had my plants there, my numerous plants, and I was like, I feel really great. This is the space that I've created. I have left my imprint on it. Not only did I put my own energy into it, but I allowed the plants and the items that I had there they put energy into it as well.
I could definitely see that, because here I am sitting in my studio, or I actually have the studio, my work room, and things that I do with my business. Well, not my business, that's a little bit different story, but my meditation area. In this area right here, I can combine that, because it has some of my spiritual books in it, and the plants are here. I mean, the more plants I have, which I've acquired several over the years, they help with the ambiance, and then some of the other things that I've placed in here too. But if I'm working on something or creating something like a letter or some sort of business information for, say, like the Optimist Group or something like that, this is a space that I do that in, because for me it's the creative aspect of this particular area. Now, my sleeping area, that's a different story. That's another different area, which is you don't get the same feel. You don't get the same atmosphere, because when you're here in this spiritual area where I'm at right now versus in there where my bedroom is, those are different. Those, that energy switches up. Now, I mean, go another direction is where I have my business at. That's a different area. I tried to take the radio show down to that particular area, and it didn't work out, because I noticed afterwards or prior to, I had to switch up my brain, from the logical brain to the spiritual side. And it was a little bit of a challenge. So I was like, okay, I realized that I couldn't be downstairs anymore in that particular, because when I went back to go down a day or so later, that spiritual energy was down there, and that's not the energy that I needed. I needed that creative energy so I could do vinyls and letters and banners and, signs and stuff like that. That's a different creative area. And then this one up here is like, yep, this is my home. But what I realized just before this particular show is I have my spiritual paperwork, and then I have some other paperwork too that I have to do. And it works this way. I can meditate in this room, and I can do that. So you have different areas that you can do different things in. So it's just creating. It really is. It's putting your mind to it and creating the space that you want. And we can get more into what type of things that you might want into your spaces a little bit later on. So, yeah, there you go.
Exactly. And I could also use my childhood bedroom, for example. Like I'm home over the summer from school, so I'm up in Michigan with my parents, and I brought all of my plants home, and this has been my bedroom for 20 years or more. And over those years, I've left my imprint on this space. So whenever I come in here, it's I feel really good. You enter it, and you use your different senses to determine what's going on in the room. It always smells kind of like Nag Champa in here because I've burnt so much incense over the course of the years. And my plants, I have two windows in my room. One faces north and one faces west, and I even utilize those compass directions for my room and in improving the ambiance. For example, in my west window, I have all of my plants, and whenever the afternoon sun shines in, my entire room looks green and like a rainforest almost. It's really cool. And hanging in my window, I have a crystal that my best friend gave me, and when the sun shines on it, it filters through, and there's rainbows all around for my room. It's very fitting for, my personality and my identity in general. And overall, I come in here and I feel like the stress is just leaving me. There is something that sits in the doorway, and when I enter through it, kind of like a membrane that sits in the doorway. When I move through it, it's like it pulls the stress off from me as I enter.
I can see that because there for a while, I was able to change the energy with my sleeping area versus the rest of the house, and I could tell the difference of the energies walking from the other side of the house or the house into my bedroom. It felt like, whew, I'm lifted, and everything kind of left me. So, and it takes a little bit, and what you were saying about you leave your imprint, absolutely, and that's what makes it a little bit of a challenge when you move into somewhere, is because others' imprint has been ingrained in those particular areas, through the floors, through the ceilings and walls, and so on and so forth. So it takes a little bit to change that energy. And obviously you've done that. I've done that. It's funny you're saying that you have a north wall and a west wall, windows, and I have a north window and an east window, and my east window is my direction. I was going to ask you, what was your direction? My direction, I like east. So I have all my plants and everything else in the east window.
That's actually an interesting place to segue into creating, how we can instruct people to create their space too, because we may not be conscious of it, but directions have a significant influence on us. When I was growing all the way until I was about 23 or so, west was my direction. I loved west. It just always gave me a significant sense of comfort. And now that I've gotten older, my direction is switching to southeast. I feel more drawn to the southeast. And it's interesting because when I moved to Missouri, even being in a different state, that space itself changed the dynamic and made me feel very different. And I had to take my apartment and actually transform it into a place that resembles the energy that we have here in Michigan, because that's what I'm used to, you know. I mean, I had to allow a little bit of that indigenous. I needed to keep various things in my place to give it a Michigan feel. Like I have different stones that I got from like the Great Lakes. I have, let's see, my plants, of course, which are important to me, like little trinkets that I had from home. You know, all of those different things established a sense of, you know, Michigan to me, like what the energy feels like here. And like now that I'm in my childhood bedroom, for example, and west is still a direction that I connect with, but for me, like I think of our cardinal directions as like, and how we're drawn to them as being like a weather vane, like we always are being led in different directions, like the arrow is always moving. And like, and I feel like mine's moving more toward the southeast as opposed to west or southwest, which was what I was originally drawn to.
You know, that's quite interesting because I've always liked the east, and I don't think my direction has changed any. And it's interesting to hear you say that your direction has changed, and it makes you wonder, okay, why? And you mentioned also that you had your core direction, which is really good to have because then that's your grounding factor. But for me, no matter where I've been, it's always been east. It's always been the side of the sunrise.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, I think south would be my core direction because, I mean, you notice that I waver from southwest to southeast and between those two different areas, because if I start veering toward the west completely or veering toward the east completely, then that energy starts to go away. So as long as it's like south, then I'm like, oh, okay, I can deal with that. But and you know, I also thought, like, I think it's important for people to ask themselves why they're drawn toward a specific direction. And I know you and I have had this experience, like had this discussion before too, because I mean, when we think about direction, we think about those different spaces or places in that direction, right? So southwest has been the direction that I've been drawn to, and I moved to Missouri, right, which is southwest of here. And when I moved to Missouri, I realized, you know, hey, like, my direction is actually southeast. But see, it's interesting. In Missouri, the direction I'm drawn to is more of an east direction. Up here, it's southeast. See, it also varies based on the space that I'm in, too. So it makes me wonder, I mean, at least for me, the directions that I'm drawn to are the directions I eventually go in, which that may be also true for other people who feel drawn to those specific, you know, areas.
I can see that because there for a long time, and I still does. I like the southeast as well, and it's really kind of a southeast, almost south direction. I like the Peru area, you know. I like South America. I like don't know about Central America because I've only been in South America, but I've always been drawn down there. And in a little while, in September, I'm going to be going to the Caribbean, which I've not been, and that's southeast of here. So that's kind of a neat thing. And so, you have that. And, you know, feng shui has a lot to do with it, too. If you really want to make a sacred space, feng shui is good. You know, and this is, I only know maybe one or two, but the northeast corner of your room is actually your money area. So, and there are crystals that are associated with that. If you put them in that particular direction, then you are sure to draw energy or draw money to you. And then, you know, so you have two different dynamics there. You have putting a crystal in that particular area. And then you have one for romance. I think it was the southwest area, and the other ones, too, for feng shui. So it's been a little while since I've really looked into that, but that's part of it. And so there are many different ways that you can create your own space. For me, I have lots of crystals. I mean, my bedroom is full of crystals. I mean, I have here in this room, I have quite a few crystals and rocks. I mean, I have some rocks and stuff like that from Lake Huron. our likely space. So, and then some of the other things is kind of nice too. So you just you can have your religious items and stuff. I have my religious items in the northeast direction. So those are powerful things for me. And then of course you can make your own little sanctuary. You can have like your own little altar, and it really doesn't have to be elaborate. Some of them become very elaborate, but you don't have to. It's just what you make it, and it's easy, little trinkets here and there. I mean, I have bird feathers, I have different I have plants and books and lots of stuff. So it really is depending on what you want to do with it, how you want to create it, and it's use your imagination. Whatever you're drawn to,
exactly.
Do it.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that in order to create your own space, you need to surround yourself with things that you love. I mean, crystals for you, plants for me, and plants for you. And another thing that I've been getting interested in as I've grown is light. Light is very important. How light filters, how ambient it is, how bright it is. And and some people prefer having, dark spaces, which is perfectly okay. If they are drawn to dark lighting or darkness, then that is what they should be immersing themselves in, right? For me, I have to have windows, shades open. If it's nice outside, windows open. There has to be a flow of light and air in my room because that's what helps me feel refreshed and creative. And I always like to have windows that face the sun at some point during the day. I honestly could not live in a room that just has north windows because really, they don't really get any sunlight except for maybe when the sun is rising or setting. But also experiment with light because light can definitely change the dynamic, even though you may not realize it.
Right, and speaking about light, I have I have the north window and the east window, and there's plenty enough light in here. But I also noticed that I've turned on two other lights in here. One has a pink glow to it, and the other has a white glow to it. And it didn't feel right when they weren't on. So, like I said, even though it was lighter in here, I still needed those lights to really make the room the way I wanted it to feel, which is very comfortable.
Right. And, when it comes to artificial lighting, lighting that we bring in with, human-made light, that's what I'm trying to say, an important thing is also experimenting with what degree of artificial lighting that you want it to have. For me, I absolutely will not tolerate fluorescent lighting. I cannot do fluorescent lighting. It has to be yellowish light. It can't be white light because it really hurts my eyes. It disrupts the energy and the space. And it definitely affects my mood too, because normally in that type of lighting I'm feeling very, down and morose, and it drags down on me, but when I use light that resembles sunlight more, though, then I feel much more uplifted.
Well, and that goes back to which kind of space you're trying to develop. For me, being downstairs in my office, and I have to have that brighter light, and even then, there was a specific light that I had to have. I'm kind of like you, too, because if it's really, really bright light, it would be great for what I'm doing, but it's not conducive to the energy that I needed for that. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So, so you're talking lighting, you're talking items within your space. One of the most important things is if you're going to move into a space, you might want to think about, washing the walls down or the ceiling or the floors and stuff like that, and then repainting. Because what you do when you do that, you're really cleansing the area before you start to develop your space. And it doesn't have to be a sacred space. It could be just a space. Because once you do that, then it's this is new. This is great. Because you're really getting rid of the energies of the individual before that. And that's one of the things, too, is no matter where a person is at, they leave their energy imprint. Mm-hmm. And when you leave your energy imprint, and that's on anything, that's on clothing, that's on furniture, that's on computers, that's on everything. Even your plants, they get used to your energy, so you're leaving your energy print on them as much as they are you.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's why I think it's important for people to be conscious of the energy that they leave behind in spaces, too. Like, if you've had a really, really bad day and you're releasing a lot of that negative energy in a place, like, people, most people don't necessarily recognize it, but if you're a sensitive, you'll definitely pick up on that because it will affect you. And that's energy. I always try to make sure, if I'm having a bad day, I always envision myself sweeping behind me, with a broom, I'm sweeping my energy out of the space. That way it doesn't affect other people. I mean, we all have different ways of doing that, but that's just an idea of how you can do that. Well, Brenda, dear, did you want to take a break real quick and we can come back and talk about leaving energy behind again and continue talking about creating a space? So, sound like a plan?
It looks like sounds like a plan to me. And welcome back to Universal Journeys. We forgot to say who was going to do what here, so I just jumped right in there. And if you'd like to give us a call, please do so at 347-850-8292. And that's 347-850-8292. Welcome back to the show. Hi, Donny.
Hello. Well, before we get going with the second half of our show, I'm going to do a couple of promotions, okay? So if you enjoy listening to our show and you want to follow us on our Facebook page, if you go to facebook.com, well, if you're on Facebook and you just type in Universal Journeys, you should be able to find our page. We share a lot of uplifting images on our Facebook. We sometimes do discussions, and we're hoping to do a lot more. So if you'd like to participate in the discussion, you can also do so there. And also, we're working on getting our shows onto YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and type in Universal Journeys, you can find us there and subscribe to our channel. Back at you, Brenda, dear.
Woo-hoo! I was going to say, I love that. I love my nephew, and he's a little guy. He was, maybe a year and a half or something like that, and he was pretty young, and all of a sudden when I was down there, he was going, I'm thinking, where the heck, that's pretty interesting. Where are you getting that from? And I asked his dad, this is my nephew, and he says, oh, that's a cartoon they hear, they see, and he wasn't talking, but he was going, so, and I liked it, so I just kind of picked it up. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
Oh, Brenda, you crack me up. I love it.
Yeah. So while we're on break, we were talking about sacred space or just space, and we come across something that was quite interesting, and I'm going to call this young man out on it in a little while. When you put things and items in your space, you need to make sure that that's the type of energy that you want to be placing in that space. Because especially if it's a bedroom or something like that, you're not going to be able to get away from that energy. So make sure what you put in there is conducive to what you want in there. That's a big thing. It's a big factor. If you're going to get antiques, and stuff like that, and you're sensitive, you might want to cleanse it before you stick it in your bedroom or any spot in the house. I have, just because I'm a sensitive, I have a very hard time getting people's used items. And it takes me a little while to cleanse it because I don't do it with any particular type of sage or stuff like that. I do it energetically. And it takes a little bit to cleanse the energy out of from the person who owned it before that. I don't wear anybody's clothes because I take on their stuff, and then I wonder what the heck is going on with me, and it's because of their energy. Your energy actually ingrains itself in articles, no matter if it's clothing, no matter if it's a desk, no matter if it's a car, it's everything. It's everywhere. So when you create your space, create it with an intention that you want to have in it. And then you go from there. If you're going to be a little negative every once in a while, which we all do, we get a little cranky and stuff, try to cleanse it out or clean it out with thought-loving energy. So, or bright light.
What are you talking about?
What?
Hey, are you saying that you're used to me being cranky? I'm kidding.
What?
Oh.
So it's just, get articles that's going to make you feel happy and make you feel joyful, if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for something else, well, then do that. I can't do that, but some people do. Some people like that energy. So, make it yourself. Make it yours. And that's the big thing, is anything and everything that you have that's yours, it's yours. Make it yours.
Exactly. So let's segue into talk about more specifically creating a sacred space, because a lot of people want to do this, but they don't necessarily get a chance to do so. And the first thing that I've always thought to myself in regard to creating a space in general is that I need to make the time in order to do it. Create the time in order to create the space. That is something very important, because you have to dedicate time to doing so. One thing that's really, really convenient if you're unsure about how to even start creating a space is by visiting the creative spaces of other people and get ideas that may appeal to your passions. Like, one of my favorite things that I did before I moved is I went and I visited bookstores, because I need to have books in my space. Like, it's not just a creative space, but having a spiritual space too. Books represent knowledge. They're very, very imperative if you want to have that kind of energy in your life. So I was looking at different bookstores and seeing what type of bookshelves they had and how they had their books organized. And then I was like, I'm going to take that and apply it to my space, to my apartment. And that's how my apartment started, is I started it based around, how I want my books to be in my space. Of course, not everyone starts that way, but, I had to. So for me, an important thing is just, observing other people's creative spaces or spiritual spaces. And it's also important to take time to observe your current living space and think of some ideas. A lot of people just don't even take the time to think for a couple of moments to what they could do. The thought process is very important, because it helps you put your ideas into perspective. No, go ahead, Brenda, dear.
I was going to say the other thing, too, is keep it kind of clean and tidy, because when you fill it with guck, like I kind of sort of have right now, it's just reminding me, when you fill it with a little bit of, stacked papers and stuff like that, you're taking away some of your creative energy there, or your sacred space. This dust and stuff like that too is keep it nice and clean, because when you have it all in disarray, that's what you're feeling inside, and that's the type of energy you're feeling. But when you clean it out, you tidy it up, you straighten things out, then all of a sudden you're like, whew, that feels better, and you have more joyfulness and more openness and things like that. So it's really a good deal to be able to do that. It's helpful.
And that's an interesting thing, because I won't completely agree with you on that, but I will agree with you partially. For me, I like to have organized, clear spaces, because it helps promote my creativity. But there are some people who function better when there is a little bit of, clutter around, a little bit of chaos. I know some people, like I know some friends who they are lost if everything is completely perfect. They need to have something out of place because to them it gives a sense of authenticity to the place. And I think it's perfectly okay. There are some people who function that way too.
Well, if you want to develop your abilities, psychic abilities and things like that, then it is suggested that you go ahead and you have clean things. And now I'm trying to find the book as you were talking here, and it's something about a seer, and I don't recall where it's at, actually. And I picked it up at Lilydale. And, right here it is. It's called Seership. It's S-E-E-R. There you go. See, I got clutter. S-E-E-R-S-H-I-P from Swami Vishta. And in this particular book, it talks about different aspects of creating your space and opening yourself up to be able to meditate or to receive different information. And one of the things that they talk about here is making sure that you clean your body, okay, that you wash your body and stuff like that, and your hair, you have clean hair, and also your sleeping area. Make sure that your bedding and your pillows and your linen and everything else are clean, because that allows the creativity to come in. You think about this is when it's dirty, you're getting all the energy of the days and days and days and days, all into your bed. So when you have it cleansed and clean it all the time, you're getting that new, clean creativity. There's not enough time for all the other stuff to soak in. So it makes total sense. I mean, this, like I said, it's a great book.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Having a bad day, the same thing. If you're having a bad day, and you clean yourself up, and then if you haven't cleaned your bedding up for a while, go do so. And when you jump into bed, you feel a heck of a lot better, and you're like, sanctuary.
So, for those of you who are completely baffled as to how you can create a sacred space, I found this really interesting article on Huffington Post, written by Debbie Woodbury, and the title of it is 5 Tips for Creating a Sacred Space. And it's a pretty short article, so I figured that I would just read it for you guys. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so she starts out this article with the quote of, "Your sacred space is where you can find yourself again and again," by Joseph Campbell. And she starts by saying, "Our lives are so busy and noisy that we often forget about the healing power of silence. When we're out in the world, it's not usually possible to control the noise level. At home, we can usually turn down the noise, but why not take it a step further and create a sacred space of peacefulness and healing? After my mastectomy, I had lots of downtime and was often drawn to a certain chair in my living room. The chair was comfortable, the room quiet, there was no television, and the view from my window was lovely during those many spring weeks of disability. I returned to this chair again and again to meditate or just to rest. Gradually, that space became sacred to me. I brought meaningful items into it by creating a makeshift altar. On a tray on the coffee table, I gathered votive candles, pictures of my family, and 2 small Buddhas. A small carved elephant I found in an antique shop became especially meaningful to me. I was dealing with a lot during that time, and my therapist told me I had the emotional memory of an elephant. Whatever I remembered, I felt again. That elephant became a symbol to me of how I processed my emotional pain." You can get started creating a sacred space by following a few easy steps. Step number 1, decide what sacred means to you. Do you need a space for yoga, meditation, or spiritual connection? To me, sacred means uplifting, peaceful, and spiritual. What does it mean to you? And, veering away from what she's saying, I think defining what sacred means to someone is very important, because for me, sacredness also includes creativity. So when I'm creating a space or creating a sacred/spiritual space, I have to involve various aspects of my creativity in with it. I'm thinking about, how is this going to stimulate my plants? How is it going to stimulate my desire to write? All of that jazz. I will keep going here. Number 2, dedicate a spot in your home that can become sacred. It doesn't have to be a whole room. It can be a corner of a room, the top of a dresser, or any other space you can find. My space is in the middle of my living room. When I am there alone, it's sacred. When my family is in the space, it's just as sacred, but in a very different way. Number 3, which kind of goes along with the last one, is creating your own altar. Find personal items which are meaningful to you next to my candles, pictures, Buddhas, and elephants. I have a small piece of tile I found it while taking a walk around my neighborhood, and it was really beautiful to me. To me, it symbolized the importance of getting back out into the world and finding gifts in places I didn't expect to find them. And I do the same thing, but with rocks. Let me see. I totally just lost my page. Number 4, surround yourself with inspirational icons. Fill your space with meaningful quotes, spiritual symbols, calming music, plants, and other items that uplift your spirit. Connecting with our spiritual selves opens up an amazing well to drink from when stresses come our way. And notice how she put in meaningful quotes. And I've told this to people many times who are very, very down on themselves, especially when they're self-bullying, that surrounding themselves with uplifting messages will help contribute by placing a positive energy in the environment, which then will filter through you in a positive way. Like sometimes I need to put different, affirmations, in my bathroom or when I wake up. That way I can be like, okay, I'm starting my morning thinking in these positive ways. You're a really awesome person. You're a really awesome individual. Things like that, right? Okay, Anyway, moving forward. The 5th and final step that she has is create a ritual. Once you've created your sacred space, how will you honor it? Will you use it to meditate for a few minutes every morning? Will you just sit in it with your eyes closed, enjoying a few minutes of peace and quiet? Your ritual can be simple or complicated, but whatever you elect to do, make it meaningful to you. Take a few minutes to bring peacefulness and healing into your home by creating a sacred space. It's not hard to do and has immense rewards. If you already have a sacred space, definitely share it with other people. Like, share your ideas with other people, because a lot of other people could benefit from ideas that you may have. And those are the different tips to creating a sacred space that Debbie provides, and I think a lot of, honestly, all of them I think I have used before. For the last one, in regard to creating to create a ritual. Like, a ritual doesn't necessarily have to be this elaborate thing. Ritual just implies that you do it on a regular basis. Like, it doesn't, like, for me, it doesn't have to be every day. It has to be every once in a while, you know, but it really varies on the individual. Some people need to do various things every day. Some people don't.
Right. And, you know, but the thing is, if you do, you will reap the reward. That's, that, you know, you do. You may not think so, but you do.
No,
you know, I love Joseph Campbell. Huh?
Oh, I heard you react to that when I mentioned that it was a Joseph Campbell quote. We were like, ooh.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell. I mean, he is a great spiritual individual, and not any one particular thought pattern or way of thinking or faith or whatever. Joseph Campbell has a lot of good information out there, and he makes sense. I mean, he's down to earth, and yeah, he's my guy. I like him. The other thing too is
no, go ahead, hon.
I'm gonna say the other thing too is, what type of pictures do you put up? You know, what are you drawn to? I mean, on my north window or north wall, I have two different pictures that I've had up for a very long time, and one is of a priest, a cross, and a woman with her hands together, and so that's one thing. And the other side of it, which is the west side, has an Egyptian way the heart type of thing, where Horus is bringing this woman to have her heart wait for her truth and purity and stuff like that. So it really depends on what you like. And I had taken down, and this is what reminded me of, is I had taken down pictures of the Pope, because I really do like this Pope. And he makes a lot of sense. There are things that, maybe I don't like so much about, but I do like it. So I took his pictures down, and even though I could still see one of them, it didn't feel quite right. So as we're talking, I placed two of his pictures back where they were, and it lifted the energy in my room. So, and that's just two pictures. That's all it was, two small pictures. And so pay attention to what you're putting in there. Pictures can do a lot. With that said, music can make a big difference. I know I was going to say Jonathan, but I'm sorry, Donnie. But Donnie.
Well, Jonathan is my brother's name too, so.
Oh, that's right. That's true. I forgot about that. But Donnie was going to talk a little bit about that aspect too. So I led you right into that one there, Donnie.
So are we ready to take a break then shortly? But first, before we do take a break.
Are we taking a break? We still got 6 minutes?
Well, we're getting close to it. But
a
very important aspect of my own life is music, and I have to somehow involve music in creating my own space. And I like the creative space, spiritual space, sacred space, it doesn't matter. Like, to me, it's just a part of me. And whenever I'm doing things, like if I'm cleaning or if I'm doing homework or writing, I like to put music on. I like to play music. The music that I enjoy filling my space with the most is Eastern Asian music. I love meditation music. I love Zen music. It helps ground me, and it helps fill my space with, a sense of being grounded. And I know some people think that I'm crazy for thinking this, and I really don't care if they do or not, but I do believe that plants are conscious of the noises around them. In fact, there's been some studies done about how plants react to sound or react to light, of course. And I always feel that my plants are happiest when I'm playing that type of music, because it flows with the energy that they create as well. And it doesn't, like, honestly, it doesn't have to be actual, audible music. I cannot speak today, apparently. Like, I have some people who like to put up images of music, like images of musicians or images of musical notes. I have a friend who has, like, this huge metallic thing hanging on her wall that's a big treble clef. Like, she used to be a musician, and that helps her, like, remind herself, hey, music is an important part of my life. And I also really liked what you were talking about earlier about what you're displaying in your room as well, like pictures and things. I'm not Christian, but I actually, in my bedroom, have a cross hanging. It was my grandmother's when she was alive, and I got it after she passed away. And that always reminds me of her, and it makes me feel as though her presence is here. So that's why I keep that. And, different pictures and different images can convey that feeling regardless. So, and it's important to be conscious of what you're putting in. I have had some things that I have actually had to throw out because it's put in a negative energy. There was this one... It was like this, it's like an old chair, kind of. And when it had such a long history, and it wasn't originally mine, it was someone else's. But I was always feeling really, like, pulled down, like I was feeling depressed and very lethargic. But once I got rid of it, I started feeling much better. Like, I felt as though my space had a renewed appearance, a renewed energy. And then I realized, I was like, hey, what I put in here, like, I need to be aware of what I put in here, because something could affect me more than I realize. And I think a lot of people need to do that, because they may not understand that, hey, I could be, getting upset or not feeling well because of something in my room or something in their space or home.
Right, and you really have to be conscious of that, too, and experimenting, definitely. So with that said, we're going to go and listen to Pagoda in the Mist. Is that what we're listening to, Donnie?
Yes, this is one of the songs that I love, love, love to listen to. It helps me feel grounded, and I wanted to share it with all of you.
Okay, it's a little bit long. It's going to be 6 minutes and 10 seconds. So we're going to leave break early. So just relax, enjoy, and try to just block out everything else. And when you come back, hopefully you feel refreshed. There you go. Hey, welcome back to Universal Journeys with Reverend Brenda and Donny Winter. So follow your heart firmly. You know which path is right for you. And please give us a call if you'd like. And to discuss any of this, it is 347-850-8292. Back to you, Donnie.
So for those of you who may just be tuning in right now, we've been discussing how to create a creative space and how to create a sacred space. And we went through 5 different tips, and we've been sharing our own personal experiences in regard to doing so. And we left off the last half hour of the show by talking about things that you want to be conscious of bringing into your space and things that you may want to exclude from your space. And, it even involves, it could be like the smallest thing. And, I was just thinking of something a while ago about, how large a space can be. Like, for me, a space can be, even a wallet or a purse can be considered a space. And I remember I cleaned out my wallet for the first time a couple months ago, for the first time in 3 years. Like, I had receipts and all of that crap from 3 years ago, and I decided to remove it and get rid of it. And then I as I was cleaning, I realized that I had this little card that someone gave me when I was in college that I always kept, and it's a quote that says, "Many curse the rain that falls upon their head, but don't realize that it's what provides abundance." And I remember that whenever I was having a difficult time, I would look at that and it would make me feel much better. And I was like, oh, I totally discovered something that I had lost by organizing the space within my wallet even. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a room or an entire house. It could just be a simple space like your wallet or your purse that can definitely leave an impression on you.
Right. I never really thought about that either, but it does help when you clean out, your wallet, as I'm doing right now, of all my receipts. Here you go. Because you think about it. You really think about it. If you have receipts and everything else in your wallet, and this is, I'm just talking about wallet because that's what you brought up, if you leave your receipts in there, that energy in itself is like, okay, that's a bill, okay, you're spending, and then it's like all of a sudden your money's gone. But if you keep your receipts from being in there, guess what? You're changing energy, so you're saving money. It's all perspective. Think about that.
Interesting and very thought-provoking, Brenda, dear.
Yeah, that was quick. That was a quick one. I was like, oh, there you go, in and out there.
So I found another place on PsychCentral.com, an article written by Margarita, Tartakovsky. Okay, yeah, I pronounced her name right. And she's talking about creating a space from the perspective of being a photographer and creating a specific creative space. And she talks about creating a space that could be dedicated to showing off different things, like collections of inspiration, a place that has furniture in it that creates a sense of comfort and convenience, and also things that create moments of curiosity and surprise. And a lot of that has a lot to do with simply adding in decor that contrasts with the rest of the setting, because a lot of people like to have things that are, a little bit different from the rest of the room, things that flow, things that disrupt in a way, but not in, a negative way. So have you ever had any experience with that, Brenda?
Oh, yeah, a lot, especially with different items and things like that. Something that I was drawn to, and all of a sudden, I couldn't use it because of the negativity that came from it. And as you were thinking about that, thinking, oh, yeah, okay, this is a creative spot. In what we put in it, we create, we bring to us. It's almost like vision boards, too. I have several different vision boards in my bedroom, okay? And as you do the vision boards, you put out different specific things that you want to accomplish, say basically in the future, or, starting from that day forward. And some of the things that I've seen on my boards, it has come true. I mean, I've acquired those because you can always look back and say, okay, I've done this and this and this. and I've done that. So that's a form of inspiration. It's like, okay, and you don't have to focus on it all the time. Just have it up there. And I mean, I have this thing on my wall, and it's Buddhist, but it says, may I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need, the Dalai Lama. And I'm doing that. I mean, sometimes you don't think about it, but you do that. As I read that, and I just finished, my arms, my body just went, It was quite
like
interesting.
Hearing you read that, I immediately felt tension leave me. It sounded amazing.
Maybe that's what I felt, but it was like, yeah. And so those are some inspirational things that I have in this particular room, among other things. But just looking at them and reading that particular time, there's like a lot of stuff just like, ooh, just left. I mean, there's another one I have too. Of course, I have pictures of my dad and me and on the wall, but yeah, that's another thing. But here's another one. It's talking about the chakras and the different colors and designs and stuff like that they have, and what the different chakra colors are, and then the name of it, of what it means. So little things like that I have. I have Native American stuff in here. I have an angel that says my guardian angel, which is by my door. And I have these things that I got at, Michael's or something like that. It says, love one another. Love makes everything grow, good. Go confidently into the direction of your dreams. And then I have one here, my most favorite saying of all by Mahatma Gandhi, and that's, be the change you wish to see in this world. And these are all inspirational things that I have, and they're very cheap, a couple bucks for each one of these, but these are things that I stuck on my wall, and so they mean a lot to me. And when I look at them, I'm reminded, okay, now I really do need to be the change that I want to see in this world, because if I don't change, no one else around me is going to change. And the funny thing about it is when you do change the energy level and your way of thinking and stuff like that, you do change the energy and the thought patterns of people around you without even realizing it. And that's,
definitely.
Once you raise your energy and you have that space, and like I said, it doesn't have to be a sacred space, but when you have a space that you can call your space, no matter how big or small or whatever, or just your sacred time, or your, not sacred time, but your special time, to read a book, to meditate or whatever, it's there. That gives you that, like outside, okay, this is another, you don't have to have it in the building. I have my little sanctuary, I call it, it's a sanctuary. I have my little sanctuary out in my backyard. It has a fire pit, it has a bench out there. I can bring my chair out there and sit, and I just love it because it's like I have a whole big backyard that's like a park, because, my friend here takes care of all that stuff, and he does a very good job. And the trees and everything else love me, and I love them. And it was funny because my friend asked me this morning, well, what's happening with the fire? You're not going to have a fire out there anymore or what? And I told him, I said, well, I didn't think that I had any woods. That's why I've been out there. And he said, oh, yeah, I stacked it up back there and covered it up for you so it wouldn't be wet and be dry. And I'm like, oh, thanks. But I didn't know that. So now that I do, I'm going to go out there and build a fire. So,
right.
Other than when it's like 80-some degrees out there and it's already hot like fire.
Yeah.
Which happens to be today.
Yes, it is pretty hot. Another interesting thing that I think we should touch on is it's not only important to be conscious of the items that you're putting in your space, but it's also important to be conscious of the energy that you're putting into the space as well. I remember when I was a teenager, I was a very, very, very depressed person. I had times where I was suicidal, and I would always play really sad music. I would never open my windows. I always tried to make sure that it was dark, and my room was always very cluttered and chaotic. And once I started making changes in my space gradually, I noticed that I became much happier. It's okay to listen to sad music as long as it's not triggering, you projecting that sadness into your space. But once I started realizing what I was doing, it changed. I opened my windows more. I made my room more organized. I stopped listening to music and allowing it to trigger emotions that I projected. And this kind of goes along with what we were talking about earlier, being conscious of the imprints that you're leaving in your wake. That way it doesn't affect other people. And even when it's affecting other people, you also have to realize that it's affecting you too. It will drag you down. It will influence your mood. It will influence your condition.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I have gotten back into listen to the music that I was listening to in the 90s. Okay? And some of those, or I should say some of that music, triggers emotions within me that need to be healed as well. So, I'm with you on a certain aspect, but I'm also, you have to be aware too that sometimes you need to be healed with some of this music that you've had during those bad times and stuff like that. So you can bring those up and to heal them. And I'm not saying that you go all out and go, and you're really devastated. And I've been there, I've done that, okay? But what I'm doing now, and I notice that I'm doing this down in my creative space in my office, but it's like I'm listening to this music and I'm feeling these emotions start to bubble up and letting them come in a productive manner and not overwhelming, but to letting them to come out and let them out. Because sometimes I feel choked up and like I'm missing someone, and so I let that out, because when you let it out, you're also clearing stuff up within you. The key is not to go, and dive deep into that emotion. It's like, okay, just allow it to come up in a comfortable way and out a comfortable way, and heal. It's a healing process too, and I've noticed that this has been a healing process for me as well. So
exactly, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think your creative space also helps you while you're listening to that music to address that pain that you felt and resolve it. If you allow your space to decay and you listen to things like that, you end up becoming in a constant cycle, which that's what I was in when I was going through that, because I just basically lived in a cluttered pile listening to sad music, but not, asking myself, why am I sad? Why why am I feeling these emotions? Why is this music triggering those emotions? I just, let it happen and happen and happen without learning anything about it. And I think that's also the thing people need to realize, is that if they're sad about something, use your space to help you overcome that as well.
Right. I mean, like I said, you can go to certain depth with that, but just remember that that's not where you want to stay. You're healing from it. You're letting it go. For me, doing it in my office space, quite interesting, because I'm allowing my logical brain to step out of the way with what I'm doing, and my spiritual side of the brain, which is where I need to heal from, is actually, doing what it needs to do with that process. So I'm keeping the logical brain from stopping me from being able to be healed. And I think that's what all this is about. And has it dampened me a little bit? There was a couple times until I realized, okay, you can go here, but you can't stay here. And that's the main thing, is like, you can go there, but you can't stay there. It's just for a healing process. And I really do need to get through this before I can actually start to write or finish the book or continue with the book that I'm writing about this very subject, about this twin flame subject. So I have to have this healing. This is a part of that, and I know that, and this is, for me, a way to get it out. On the other note, though, is you have to watch. If you're doing certain things in the office space and people are going to get this material, you need to be very careful with that, because you're projecting that energy, or you could be projecting energy into those items that you're going to give away, or you're giving to people, or they're buying from you. So be aware of that, too.
Exactly. Another interesting thing that kind of goes along with this is the fact that we all have a small space that we have around us all the time. And this has a lot to do with what we allow to filter into ourselves, like emotionally from other people or energetically. Like, I always envision it as being like a bubble around me, and the space within that bubble is what I control. And what I let in and out of that bubble is, what I choose to interact with. And I know you and I have had discussions with this many times, Brenda, that that not many people are conscious that they can actually create that type of space either. And oh my God, like, heck, we could do an entire show on that at some point too. But it's important to realize that if you're in a public space where you could be vulnerable to other people's baggage or their emotions or the energy that they're giving off, like, it's important for you to also know how to create a space around yourself that protects you from what they're trying to fling at you.
And sometimes you have to distance yourself a little bit from them, too. There's a strategy when you do stuff like that, and you really do need to strategize. Like yesterday, Donny and I, we both like, okay, we're going to have these different energies that are coming and flying, just a natural thing. So what Donny did his bubble, and I did what I did, to protect and to allow the energy to be able to flow through, and for us not to get stuck with it. And that's another thing, too, is sometimes when we're doing things for people, trying to help them out, we take on their stuff. And that's not a good thing, because 9 times out of 10 we forget we take it on and we don't let it go. And that's what we need to do, is if we're going to help someone, try to heal them or talk to them or whatever, and we take it on, we need to realize that that's not our stuff, and we get rid of it. It's like, okay, it's gone. Like flick, 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 flick. I always like the flick thing. And but there are different ways that you can protect yourself, and you can create space, and you can use that by energy, by colors and energy. I like to use the white divine light of God, or the golden light of God. Mostly it's white, though. It always comes from my heart, inside my heart, out. And as it comes out, it also comes out with love and kindness and stuff like that. And every once in a while, the kindness kind of goes off to the back burner, but I pull it back out. But it's, it's that type of energy. So it just isn't the items, but it's also what you put in it, as in from inside of you, outside, or whatever. So energy, your own energy has a lot to do with it, and in what you think and how you proceed with that. So.
Exactly. And another interesting thing to keep in mind is the environment around us is a space of itself, a space that you can also consider a spiritual, sacred, or creative space. Like, I know we live on a large piece of property that has a lot of forest on it, and sometimes I just need to get away from everything, and I go for walks, and I just basically walk under the trees and over hills and stuff and near bodies of water, and that helps renew me too. And that's why a lot of people find solace when they come out into the countryside, because that's their sacred space rejuvenating them.
Right. As you were talking, I was just thinking about one of my friends in New York who owns the Boston Tea Party out there, or tea shop, something like that. Not the Boston Tea Bar, but the Boston Tea Shop or something. And he's always on. He always gets information and is bombarded by different things outside and things like that. And he says he loves it when it snows or when it rains, because that's when everything is muffled for him and it's quiet. That's what his peace and quiet is. So, as much as we say that, oh, I hate it when it rains, but something, that also is a calming time. I remember several years ago when it was snowing out, and I was walking down a back road, a dirt road, actually, if you can imagine that anymore. But I was walking down a dirt road, and it was gently snowing, and, the trees are on the side of the road. It was so beautiful, but it was so peaceful. So those are things, too, that if you can remember, if you've ever done that, you can bring that particular memory into your space and just fill it with that type of memory, and it'll be like, wow, this is, like, so cool. So lame.
And I can totally connect with that, too, because, like, the weather within the space that you connect with is important. Like, I strongly connect with rain, and I always hear so many people hating on rain. Rain sucks. Rain is ruining my plans. Rain, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, if we didn't have rain, we wouldn't have this beautiful greenery before us. You wouldn't be able to drink water. You wouldn't be able to do anything. I mean, if I just, and I understand that some people are more drawn to dry weather, but I have respect for all forms of weather, because all forms of weather are an intricate part of the world, and the world is a space in of itself too. So there are different levels of spaces that we need to always be open to always be aware of.
Right. And the weather itself is quite an interesting thing that happens. When it rains and lightnings and thunders, if it's a natural storm, the energy is different in a natural storm than a man-made storm. Because a man-made storm is more like all of your nerve systems is like on edge. You're like, like you're in a socket, like a light socket type of deal. However, with a natural storm, you're going to get a lot of activity, but you're not going to get that feeling. Okay?
Exactly.
So I've noticed the difference between a man-made storm and a regular storm that happens. And the other thing, too, for me is what I've been noticing versus a man-made or a natural storm is a man-made comes out of the east. And our flow, our jet stream is from west to east, not from east to west. So that's another thing. It's like, and it's very hard to control that light socket feeling, because you don't know your whole body, all your cells in your body are like, ah! That's when everyone goes chaotic and like, sorry. I like, sounds.
You love sound effects. I love it.
I do.
It is highly entertaining.
Well, and that goes along with, I swear I was born an Italian because I use my hands a lot and my body expressions and things, but I'm not Italian. I don't have any Italian descent or ancestry. So, but when I can't do that, then I use sounds because sounds actually make you like wake up or something. Like, whoa, wait a minute here, I got this.
Exactly.
It just takes the place of it. But then again, I noticed that now I'm combining both of them when I'm in public, and I'm like, whoa. Only when I'm around too.
Oh, yeah, we tend to, we get pretty crazy sometimes, but in the best possible ways.
Yeah, we play off of each other. Huh.
We do. Well, dear,
okay.
Would you like to take one final break?
You betcha. And welcome back to Universal Journeys with Reverend Brenda and Donny Winter. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Don't forget that, okay? We have another half an hour left, so if you'd like to give us a call at 347-850-8292. And don't forget that on this particular Mystical Awakenings radio station, we have Beyond Smoke and Mirrors from 7 to 9 Monday night. We have Spiritual Journeys Tuesday nights from 7 to 9. We have Mystical Awakenings Radio with our dear, lovely hosts, Deb DeRouche and Deb Markham, on Wednesday nights from 7 to 9. And then we have True Paranormal with our very own Jonathan and also Deb DeRouche, Friday nights, 7 p.m. So, welcome back, Donny.
Oh, thank you, Brenda, dear. Your singing was beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, right there. I screwed up in the end. That's too early. So, with that said, we do have a caller who's been waiting on the line so patiently, although he was listening, and I think he has some things to say about sacred space or having your space and what it does and how it affects you. So, and it is our very own Jonathan Lento. Here we go. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, my lovelies. How are you?
Yeah,
how are you?
I'm much better today.
Yay.
Yeah, so I don't even know where to begin with this.
Begin it yesterday.
All I can say, we can begin it like 22 years ago when I first started doing this and collecting things and all this, but I'll tell you, yesterday, so I had the lovely moment to spend with you guys during the day, on and off.
Yeah.
And Brenda,
it was great.
I'll just speak straight from the heart. You came up and hugged me, and immediately kind of went ooh, 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 ooh. And I won't go into details of what was said, but towards the end of the night when I went to leave, you said you have a lot of attachments. You need to let them go. Mm-hmm. And, I had a 4.5-hour drive home to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way home, I'm thinking, wow, Brenda's not the only one lately who has told me, you've been doing this for a while, John. You got sick. Maybe it got in over your head.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at what's going on and let some things go. And I, that comes from a lot of people that are very, very close to me and have been for years. And for some reason, it struck home when you said it to me, Brenda, yesterday. And that's why I erupted into tears when I went to leave.
Well, John... Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you've had people, who've known you for years, and they've told you this, okay? I've only known you for a very short time frame, and you feel like a brother, a soul brother that's been with me forever. And so this little short time period, I've gotten to know you quite a little bit, and I think because of that short time period, that's what it was about. It's like, oh, here you go. And the other thing too is I have a different way of bringing things out to people that make them think. And I really think that's what happened yesterday is I brought it out to you in a way like, oh. Because one of that little aspect that I brought out to you hit home, and I know it hit home hard.
Oh, yes, very hard. And I can't, I don't want to divulge what it was because that was so personal, but the fact that you shared that, when I got up this morning, my fiance woke me up very early, and he knew I got in very late, but he woke me up very early, and he's like, I hope your day was great. Tell me all about it. And the first thing I said to him was our parting words. And he kind of went, oh, and he had a dirty word after that, but he went, oh, crap. And I said, yeah, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to let you go for a minute, and I'm going to work on me for a little bit. And I'll tell you, you talk about sacred space. Now, let me, if you guys will let me, I'll backtrack. This has been my sacred space for 7 years. Before I moved in with my parents, I had my own home. It was a beautiful home. But even within my home, I had a space for all my haunted objects, things I collect, and I would put them there, and they were safe because whenever I wasn't in there, I would close the door, and I made a habit of locking it because I knew they were safe behind that door, and I did the protections and things in my home, and I knew they were safe in there. I was safe outside of there. Here, I don't get that luxury. This is my parents' home. So anything I want to have in my space could or could not affect me, not like it did before. And here, maybe I've got a little lax on it, and I've said I'm just going to bring everything in. And I'll tell you what, within the last year, I've been very lax. And I've said, you know what, I miss a lot of things. I went and got them out of storage. I welcome more things, and I just overloaded my space. And Brenda, here's where a lot of it hit home. Prior to me being sick, and I'm not sick anymore, and I say that because I'm not, and I believe that, but prior to me getting sick was about 3 months ago, and I started overloading my space. Now, before that, I could sit at my desk, I could write, I could do artwork, I could do whatever I wanted to, and all of a sudden, all that space got overloaded with items and things from my past or new acquired things, and I just let them come in, and I let them continue to come in. And when you talked to me yesterday, it hit me so hard. And then when you guys were talking at the beginning of your show and I heard all this, I'm like, oh, my God, I so buried myself and did not allow myself to be creative, be outward, do what I love to do, because I just inundated myself with stuff that I love, but at the same time I know have maybe some dangerous properties, maybe can be negative at times, but I just let it in because I thought I have control always, because we always do, right? We don't.
Nope.
But I just brought it all in. And, you know, our little meeting yesterday was so eye-opening because it was like that V8 commercial with the thump in your forehead. So when I got up this morning, my mother was up, and I said, you want to do an adventure with me? And my mom kind of laughed because she's like, oh, God, what? I'm like, let's grab some empty tubs and start getting things out of my room. My mom and dad, God love them, they support everything I do, but they also know that with me welcoming these things into my life, there are some dangers, and they don't always express their feelings, but my mom started to this morning as we're loading them up. And as I'm putting I have my own things that I do. I won't go into it, but as we're binding up the tubs and doing things and moving them to a locked area in a building that's outside of her home, and we're doing all that, my mom is explaining to me how much better she already feels. We get done with that. Let me tell you, in the last 2.5, 3 months since I've been out of the hospital, I have not had the energy to really clean my room, let alone do my own laundry. Today, I ripped all my bed sheets off, my pillows, threw them all in the washer on my own, took the mattresses off my bed, cleaned them, swept and shampooed my own carpet, got my curtains down, cleaned them. All of a sudden, it was like this renewed life. And it's so hard to explain because it was like, oh, I've got my room back. I've got my, like you guys said, sacred space back. I have to clean. Here's one thing that I noticed, and this is so mundane and little, but it struck me when you guys were talking about the little things that we don't notice. I have a pet. that I have had for 5 years now. And in captivity, these things only live about 2 to 3 years. It's this little tiny fiddler crab that I bought at Walmart years ago. And when I bought it, it was an entertainment pet. And I hate to say that, but you know you're going to buy a pet that's going to last a year and it's going to be gone. And that's what I thought. And I thought about it today, and I'm looking at Morticia, and I'm going, my God, how long have I had her? Oh, wait, I still have a receipt taped at the bottom of the tank. And Donnie, when you were talking about going through your wallet and looking at the receipts, that's what made me think about it. The receipt's taped at the bottom of her tank. I've had this little gal for 5 years.
Wow.
She's been around enough positive energy in the 5 years to continue to thrive. And it kind of hit me at the same time in a sad way. In the last few months that I've been sick, how much negative energy has she had to put up with? And because of our meeting yesterday, I was able to shut some of that away, put it away, and I'm thinking, oh, my goodness. So mundane. It's a little fiddler crab. Most people wouldn't think 2 bits about it. But I'm thinking she's here because I love her. And I know that sounds insane, but I'm thinking all this stuff.
No,
she's here. All of a sudden, I'm empowered again today because I took all my curtains down. I cleaned everything. I got the cobwebs out of my room. I swept. I cleaned. I sent you the pictures on Facebook, and I said, did you notice anything? I removed all the haunted dolls and items out of my room that were quote-unquote haunted, put them away, literally locked them up, came back in, and I'll tell you, Brenda, not for nothing, I haven't been, but I'm close to dancing around all day. This is the most I've been on my feet and active since I can start putting together the fact that I was letting or allowing these things to come back into my life and putting them back in this little space of mine. And my room's only at 10 and flooding. And all of a sudden, when I really think hard about it, it's when I stopped writing, when I stopped really doing my artwork. It's when I started feeling bad and letting all the negative in. And my God, I've been collecting these things for years, and I've always thought I've had a control over it. And it's not until I invited them into a really serious personal space that it really affected me, because it's never been so close. It's always been across the home or in a separate area or a separate building, but when I brought it so close, it affected me that way.
Yep. And we don't realize it because those are trinkets that we love, and so you don't think of it being, detrimental to our health, and it was getting you, and I saw that coming on. I've known you a little over, I would say more than 3 months. I've known you for a little bit more, and so I could see it. And then when I saw you yesterday, you look like one of your dolls. That's how they would walk.
That hit me so hard when you told me that. And I'll tell you, one of my really good friends that has dealt with me since I've been sick and has said, John, you need to consider getting this stuff out of there because you look like one of them. She told me that months ago, and I went, whatever. When you said that yesterday, that's why I looked at you funny a couple times, because I could hear my friend Diane's voice in my head going, John, you look like one of your clown dolls.
Yep.
And I was like, oh God.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because when I met you up at the Unity Tree at the first time, you didn't look like that. Okay? You didn't look like that. And then when I met you this time and, watching you go through the stuff that you went through on Facebook, and so when I saw you, I'm like, oh my gosh, he looks just like one of his dolls. That's how his dolls would walk. And thinking, you really need to clear those out. Stop that, to get rid of that. Now, one more thing I have to tell you about your room. Even the dolls out there, you have at least a couple entities in there that you have to clean out of there in order for you to really have your sacred space back.
Those are going to be some tough ones. And I know what you're talking about because, well, the only reason I say they are is because they were here before I came here.
Nope, they're not.
Okay, we'll talk off the air then.
No, they're gonna. I'm going to tell you right now. They're going to be gone here in a few minutes, because that's just how I roll.
Oh, well, do it, baby.
You got it.
I'm not going to stop you.
You got it. So
I'm not going to stop you at all, because I'm telling you, and before I even, because I wasn't going to listen to your guys' show tonight just because I wanted to relax, and I really felt good about cleaning today and about having my room back. And I was talking to my friend Diane before I called in and listened to the show, and that's why I called in late. And I was like, Diane, I'm like, I feel so good. And she's like, sweetheart, because I sent her the pictures before I put them on your Facebook. She's like, when I saw that, I wanted to do a cartwheel. She's like, the dolls were gone. And you don't know this, but there's some quote-unquote certain maybe murder items that I have displayed in my house, in my bedroom, that are gone as well. And she's like, they're gone. The dolls are gone. She's like, oh, my God. She's like, you sent me those pictures, and I immediately told my partner, look at this. Look, John got rid of all that crap. I'm like, well, I didn't get rid of it. I just put it in the outsourced building outside of our house. And she's like, yeah, that's good enough. But
it is good enough. I was a little concerned there with you when you took perfectly good dolls and made them look deathly. That's when it's like, we got to do something here. And, yeah, and I was guided to do some stuff yesterday when I talked to you, and I think you already know this. And so, and it helped,
that's
and it worked, and I'm glad.
When I conveyed that personal message to Derek, he was like, oh God, honey. And I'm like, yep. Makes sense, doesn't it? And he's like, oh, yeah. Yep. And he didn't even realize he was contributing, because when we met, he collects haunted dolls as well.
Right.
So we just combined our collection, not thinking anything about it. And here was the really bad part. I thought about it last night after I talked to you, and I'm like, oh goodness. Oh, good golly. Because when we combined, I have a certain ritual I do with my own and things I do. I never did it with his. I just welcomed it in and said, here you go.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. And I, and then I sat back and said, oh, why am I sick? Yeah.
Now you know why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll
now
tell
you know why.
Feeling much better today, and thank you. And that's about it. That's all I got, really.
You're most welcome, and it's definitely my pleasure to help out, and that's just one of those things that happens, and that's why I asked you if I could touch you, and I knew it was working, and then, with you, like, okay, yeah, it's good, oh, maybe not. How are you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say is, it's like, how are you walking today? Is your walk better? Are you able to bend your knees a little bit more than you were yesterday?
I'm laughing, and the only reason I'm laughing is because, yes, and I want to say 90 times better than yesterday, because I actually took a walk around my block, which is a quarter of a mile, and I did it twice.
Wow.
And then I came back in my house, and that was before I finished cleaning out my room.
Yeah.
So if that tells you anything, yeah. And I actually looked at myself in the mirror, and I laughed, and I said, look, you're standing up straight. And I was standing up so straight tonight, and I said, thinking to myself, there it is. So it'll be interesting in the morning how good I feel, because I felt really good yesterday. And that was one of the points that my friend brought up, Diane, today, was, how did you feel when you were away from the house? And I said, great. And I don't know if you guys noticed, I had a lot of trouble walking.
Yes.
But as the day progressed, I used my cane less and less.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I saw that.
To the point where I didn't use it at all. And then the whole ride home, we stopped a couple times. I jumped out of the car, went in, did whatever I had to do, used the restroom, got a snack, came back in, got out, carried everything in the house, was fine, got up this morning, and felt like crap. And the first thing I did was reach for the cane, put the knee braces on, was kind of waddling around, got everything out of the house, and as the days progressed, now that everything's gone, I've been fine. Haven't had to use the cane, been standing up straight, been walking better. And, I sound like a hypocrite when I say this, but I always thought I had such control over everything here in my house, in my room, and it took literally 2-3 minutes of talking to you to wake me up, to make me remove it and go, okay, I'm gonna deal with this, and I feel 100 times better.
Now, do you want me to tell you a little backstory that happened to me the night before down in my office?
I would love it.
When I was down in my office on Friday night and getting ready for this festival, and I needed to get certain things done, and the whole week, actually a couple weeks, things have been very chaotic. Things have been, messed up and messing up, and, computer doing a certain thing, and my cutter was doing a certain thing, and all of a sudden I'm hearing somebody laughing at me from the back. And I knew that it was someone from your little group down there, okay? I knew this. So, number one, don't ever laugh at me when I'm trying to do something, because that's when the wrath comes out, and you better watch it. Or I should say the horn comes out, and you better watch it, because I'm a Taurus, all right? So, with that, when I got laughed at, I took care of that issue. And like I said, I knew where it came from. And I was working on that and others that was with that individual. And it was a male entity. Okay? And I took care of it. And it really wasn't necessarily from you, but it was from something that happened up at Houghton Lake when we were up there together. I took care of that bugger. I'm telling you, no one else seemed to be able to. I took care of him that Friday night. Anyhow, that person won't bother us anymore, that entity. So with all of that, I knew that was affecting you and everything else down there with you, because you were the one who was getting that particular type of energy, and it was harming you physically, and I don't like that. So I took upon myself to start the cleansing process. I also knew that you were coming up. When I saw those dolls on the internet of how you painted, I'm like, that's got to slow down a little bit, because that's bringing that energy back in there. So, and I knew,
you know what's really
in a
funny
manner
about that?
Speaking.
I came home last night, and when I got out of the car, I took the box with the rest of the dolls, and I people are going to think, they don't know the story, so they're going to go, what the hell? I walked straight to my trash can outside of my house. I opened it up, and I dumped them in. Shut it.
Yep.
And my friends were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You want to make money off those. You spent so much time. And I said, I got to walk away. They're good. And I did. I just dumped them, left them, gone, done.
Well, because what you were doing is you were picking up on that murderer stuff that was in your room, and you were doing it for that person.
We're going to talk off the air. We're going to talk off the air about this, because 2 weeks prior to me going to Houghton Lake for the first time, I did a very, very heavy house cleansing. And when I did it, one of the family members mentioned a certain quote-unquote murderer's name, and you already know who I'm going to talk about, and said, we feel like his energy's here. And I said, what? And that came out of left field for me, and I'm like, no, stop. Stop. Sometimes it's just kind of one of those, and I said, stop, let that go, don't even think about that. And then when we were at Houghton Lake and it got brought up again, I'm like, whatever.
Yep.
And now here it is again, you're bringing up, and it's like, yep.
That's taken care of, but we can still talk off the air. Now, with what I saw yesterday, I was getting told, when you see Jonathan, this is what you have to do, and that's what I did, and literally, I knew, and I kept all day long, I was sending you a lot of healing energy, to get the rest of that guck out of there, and get the meridians open and all of that, So the other thing, too, is when you were doing readings yesterday, you were taking on people's crap, and I was like, nope, got to clear that away, because that only fuels the that's there. So there was a lot of cleansing going on, and I hope you don't mind that. I was doing it all day. Because
no, not at all.
Okay, so that was that, and it's like, okay, that was my main reason being there, really. I mean, other than just doing what we did. But that was my main reason.
Well, and it was funny because when I would do the readings, I'd pick up on their energy, and I was trying to kind of just, go away, stop, and then I would feel it be lifted from me.
Yep.
Almost without me willing it off, and I'm going, okay, it's good. And I didn't quite know where it was coming from, but I just rolled with it and was like, good.
Yep. Yeah, because if I didn't do that with the work that was being done to help you, it wouldn't have worked. So, anyhow, I'm glad to hear that you are much better. I mean, you're able to walk around. That's a confirmation for me. And I thank my sources, God's source and all of my helpers and the archangels and stuff that helped out too. So they did really well. And I thank them and I thank you.
They did. No, I thank you even more. And I thank Donny too, because both of you guys had such great energetic hugs and such great energy. So, which is probably why I cried when I hugged you both. So.
Yeah, I knew. So, okay, with that said, we are coming down to the last minute, or less, actually. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Hope you learned something here. And don't forget to always follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you.